too many to count, to say that I love you, to worship you now. Your love is perfect, and your heart is kind, and I'm yours forever, forever you're mine. Jesus, the anthem of my heart, Jesus, the anchor of my soul. I'm overwhelmed by all you are. Oh, how I love you. You call me beloved, you call me friend. Your grace says I'm worthy, you welcome me in. Now all that I long for, and all that I need, is to be in your presence. Forever I fall at your feet. Jesus, the anthem of my heart, Jesus, the anchor of my soul. I'm overwhelmed by all you are. Oh, how I love you. Jesus, the anthem of my heart, Jesus, the anchor of my soul. I'm overwhelmed by all you are. Oh, how I love you. Faithful to the end, God, you are always good. Where do I begin? There's so many reasons to love you. Your promise never breaks, your beauty never fades. What else can
Welcome, welcome. We're so glad that you are here this evening with us. For those of you in the lobby, if you could begin heading in, that would be great. Well, we are thrilled to have you with us this evening. This is our second to last Standing Free of the year. I can't believe that time has flown this much. We've had an awesome array of events across this year, and it's great to see so many faces who have been faithfully at so many of these events for the year. So we have 2 more events to close out this year, which we are super excited about. And we are already scheduling into next year and have a very cool lineup. So you won't want to miss any of those, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But first, let's open in prayer, and we can get started. Lord, thank you so much for this evening. We thank you for bringing everyone here. We thank you for this delightful weather that we have been enjoying. And thank you for California and the things that we enjoy here. I pray that we will be faithful with this state that you've entrusted to us, and that we will continue advancing freedom and your gospel and your word forward. We thank you for Twila and the fight that she has done and is continuing to do in that regard. We pray that we'd be able to learn from her how we can best steward this state and steward our freedoms, so that ultimately we can share your word with the world and a lost generation, Lord. So we pray all these things in Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, welcome. As you probably have realized, which is why you're here, we have Twila Brase with us here this evening. She's a phenomenal researcher and nurse who has really been in the fight of medical freedom for many, many years, even before COVID, even before many of us entered that realm. She has been in this realm for many, many years. So when the Real ID sort of information and things started popping up about that, we researched who could we have who could enlighten us or share with us on the dangers of the Real ID, or just some of the things that we should know. What does the federalization of IDs look like? Is this a rabbit hole? Is this something that the government's going to use to gather more and more information on us? And Twila seemed to be the expert on that, so we were able to get her here, and for that, we are so happy. Next week as well, again, these two great events to close out the year. Inez Cantor Freedom. How many of you have heard of him? Used to play on the Celtics, the Knicks. So this is one that you won't want to miss. As I've been saying, he is our biggest standing free speaker. Standing at 6'10", he is very much standing free and tall on his own, and makes me feel very short standing next to him. So if you'd like to get a picture with him where you can't even come up to his shoulder, be sure to sign up for the VIP meet and greet next week, and that will be at 4:45. So 4:45 in the fireside will be the meet and greet. Doors will open at 5:30 for the main event, and main event will start at 6. He's an incredible freedom fighter, pretty much canceled by the NBA. He would have custom shoes at each game, stomp out tyranny with pictures of dictators, the Iranian dictator, President Xi of China, calling out the abuse of the Uyghurs in China, and so many different things. So he has just released a book called In the Name of Freedom, because he legally changed his name to Freedom so that it could be on his jersey, as you can see. And so a very neat man, came out of Turkey. His family is persecuted in Turkey. He can't go home. So very fascinating story that he has lived. And he's done all this in the name of freedom, as he says. So that is one that you will not want to miss. Tell your friends. Again, how many conservative sports icons are there? Not too many. So he's one of the few. And so he's definitely one that we want to hear his story and hear what that's like to go through firsthand. Also, the Liberty Forum, again, another great friend of the ministry, is hosting John Solomon. How many of you are familiar with John Solomon, the investigative reporter? So they will be hosting John Solomon this Tuesday, November 11th. So there will be some of these flyers floating around. For more information, you can talk to Dave or Patty right over here, and they can get you, sorry, Phyllis, not Patty. Dave or Phyllis, and they can give you a flyer, or you can go to liberty-forum.us for more information on John Solomon. Liberty Forum is another great organization that we like to support, and John Solomon, of course, is a huge speaker that we want to recognize for the work that he's done in uncovering the lies and deception of the modern media and the modern government machine. All right, starting off in 2026 then, I can't believe it's already going to be 2026, we have our annual Standing Free Testimony Night in January. So that will be an incredible lineup of just people like you and me whose lives have been changed and transformed by the gospel. And that's really what we want to look at when we're saying we're standing free. How do we stand free? How do we stand free from the world? And how do we really make a difference? And so the testimony night is a great one. If you weren't able to be here for the testimony night last year, you won't want to miss this one. And the live stream is also up. So I would highly encourage you to go watch that if you haven't. Then in February, we will be hosting Bill Federer, a great historian and amazing man also who is personal friends with Charlie Kirk. So he's going to be recounting some memories and stories of working with Charlie Kirk. And he's going to be speaking on the rise of Islamicism in the West. So, we've seen the election of Mamdani in New York City. What does that look like for the West as far as the Islamic influence that has been sweeping the West? So that will be a focus of his message. Yes? Yes, they're all live streamed and recorded. So this is being live streamed currently and will be and is already up as we speak. So they're all on the Standing Free YouTube channel. It's StandingFree.org, or you can get there via the website as well, via the links. If you go to standingfree.org/past events, there's a whole list of them there as well. So, great question. Yes. Any other questions? No, I'm kidding. Questions and answers will be after. But thank you for bringing that up. That's a great thing to bring up. Yes, these are all live streamed. If you have friends or family that were not able to make it, you can send them the link so that they can watch that right now tonight live. And then in March, that is going to be Lieutenant John Norris, and he is a a retired Fish and Wildlife officer who started the Marijuana Eradication Task Force, showing, as he and his men were out patrolling the wildlands, taking care of our waterways and our wildlife, they would stumble upon massive cartel growing operations right here in this very area. Santa Cruz Mountains, the foothills, right here in this very area, and he grew up right here in this area. And so he started the Marijuana Eradication Task Force, working with special forces in our area, working with the DEA, FBI to take out these dangerous cartel growing operations literally in our backyards. And it's crazy the things that he shows and has seen firsthand from his time. So those are just a preview of what we have upcoming next year. We also have many more, so keep an eye out on the website and our emails so that you will be able to see all of the cool events that we have scheduled and upcoming for next year. And then also check out that past events page so you can see all of these events that we've hosted over this past year. All right, a highlight of each and every Standing Free now is Standing on the Word, which was an initiative that we launched this year to be able to highlight our students from memorizing, hiding God's Word in their heart, but also being able to have the boldness to present that in front of an audience, because that's ultimately what we want to encourage, is not just the memorizing and hiding God's Word in our heart, but also being able to share it in front of an audience to be bold for Christ. So this evening, we have a wonderful student, so if you'd like to come up and join me, let's give her a warm welcome. So Adina, right? Yes, so Adina is joining us this evening. Lemuel, her brother, is an alumni of Standing on the Word, so he has received a scholarship already. And this evening, Adina will be sharing a selection of verses. So if you'd like to come right up here so that the whole audience can see you. So come all the way up. There we go. That way everyone over there can see you too. All right, so I will let you take it away. I'm going to give you this microphone here. All right. So I will let you take that one, and I will let you go ahead.
Ephesians 5:1-2. Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Ephesians 5:1-2. Ephesians 6:1-4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with the promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Ephesians 6:1-4. Hebrews 1:1-3. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature. And he upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sin, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. Hebrews 1:1-3. Jonah 4:10-11. And the Lord said, you pity the plant for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow, which came into being in a night, and perished in a night. And should not I pity Nineveh, that great city, in which there are more than 120,000 persons, who did not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle. Jonah 4:10-11. Micah 7:7-9. But as for me, I will look to the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. Rejoice not over me, O my enemy. When I fall, I shall rise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord will be a light to me. I will bear the indignation of the Lord, because I have sinned against him, until he pleads my cause and execute judgment for me. He will bring me out to the light, and I shall look upon his vindication. Micah 7:7-9. Matthew 6:19-21. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Matthew 6:19-21.
Good job, Adina. So, a couple questions for you then. So, about how long did it take you to memorize these verses?
Like 3 days, I guess.
3 days? Okay, hold the mic up so everyone can hear you. About 3 days?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that means by next week, you guys should be able to have double that because we have a whole week. So, you guys got that? Now, what would you say is your favorite verse out of that passage, out of all those passages that you shared?
Micah 7:7.
And which one was that one, or how come that one speaks to you? Well, how does it go?
But as for me, I will look to the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me.
That is a good one. That would probably be one of my favorites too. It's always important to look to the Lord as the God of our salvation. All right, well, Adina, good job. And we have your scholarship here this evening, but unfortunately we were not able to get your certificate or buttons finished in time. But I have your scholarship here, and she's going to come back next week to be able to receive her certificate and buttons. So, Adina, here you go. Very, very good job. You earned this, and you can use that for any of your scholarship needs. So, good job. Yes, so that was the thing why we didn't have the certificate and buttons ready yet, because she just decided to do this afternoon and asked us if she could come, and it was perfect because the Standing on the Word student that we had scheduled for today, we rescheduled for January. So, Adina, very good job. And where are your parents? Let's have your parents stand up so that we can recognize them as well. Here comes your dad. So, great job. We'll have your button and certificate next time, but wonderful job, wonderful job. Good job, Adina, and we'll see you next week then. We'll have your certificate and button ready for you. Good job. So, what a blessing, and what a blessing to do that spur of the moment. She decided to do that last minute, and she crushed it. So, good job, Adina. And Lemuel had done that before, so clearly their family is doing a wonderful job with that. Oh, yes. Adina, how old are you? She's 9. And Lemuel, how old are you? 11. So, all those verses at that age. So, you guys have no excuse. So I always like to say this as far as standing on the Word goes. Really two things. One, it's so important to hide God's Word in our hearts when we're young so that when we're old we won't forsake it. And two, it's so important to share that Word as well. So not only just memorize it, but also have the boldness to share that in front of a crowd. Because at the end of the day, we want to always be prepared to give a reason and give that in gentleness and kindness. And so that's what we're encouraging through the Standing on the Word. And so we could have them write a speech. We could have them write a speech comparing Austrian and Keynesian economics, or the free market, or democracy, or being a republic, or foundation of America. But really, we want to focus on the basics. And what is that? Ultimately, it's God's Word. And each and every time I make this point as well, that we bring in our Standing on the Word speakers into the green room. We go over the run of show. They're able to spend some time with the speaker. We all pray together, and we treat them as a speaker. That way they get that understanding of what is it like to be in a professional speaking setting? What is it like to be in an event? That way they can have that foundation for someday to be able to change the culture and redeem that culture for Christ. So, I think that's everything I had to cover. Good job, Adina. Great job. All right. Well then, it is very exciting for me to introduce Twila Brase, RN and PHN, co-founder and president of the Citizens Council for Health Freedom. She is the author of the award-winning Big Brother in the Exam Room and hosts the Health Freedom Minute every weekday on 870 radio stations. Twila secured a late 2019 Trump executive order and the introduction of the 2025 Retirement Freedom Act to allow seniors to opt out of Medicare without losing Social Security. She launched the Patient Toolbox, the CCHF discharge instructions, and the Wedge of Health Freedom, a nationwide directory of direct pay medical practices. Brase authored the COVID-19 Quick Reference Guide with over 150,000 downloads and the 2024 Medicare How-To Guide. She's testified in various states, stopped the unique patent ID, and is spearheading the effort to stop the unconstitutional Real ID. And she also has the website refuserealid.org. Twila was chosen as one of 18 to participate in Trump's 2019 HHS Quality Summit in DC. Twila was also named one of modern healthcare's 100 most powerful people in healthcare. So I'm blessed to welcome Twila Brase, and let's give her a warm Standing Free welcome.
Well, this is wonderful, and seeing all of your faces is wonderful. I come all the way from Minnesota, and I'm going to ask if it's possible for my PowerPoint to show up there, because I don't have a computer in front of me, and usually I do, so I don't want to miss the points that I have wanted to share with you. So thank you so much for putting that up there. All right, so I've been asked to come here and talk about Real ID and HIPAA and the health tech ecosystem. And how should I do that? Oh, do I have a clicker? Oh, good. Love it. Okay, there we go. So let's just start out with a really big freedom event. And you all are freedom-loving people, and so today is the 36th anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down. And those rocks there are the ones that I picked up at Checkpoint Charlie in 1989. Or no, it was 1990 actually. But just about 9 months after the wall had come down. And it's amazing how many people had taken pieces of that wall. Well, I would just like to start out by saying that America is a gift from God based on the Word of God and the laws of God. And America is about to celebrate its 250th anniversary, and we are an experiment to the world of what it means to be free. And the real question is, will we be standing free 250 more years from today, or what will it take? You know, if Jesus comes back, great. And wonderful. But what will America be like in 250 years? And will it be America, or just a landmass that was once called America, land of the brave and the free? And that's my hope, that that is not going to be the case. So America stands free, and the only way that America continues to stand free is if all of us are standing free. So I love the name of the organization that puts on these presentations, because the fact of the matter is America is a government for, by, and of the people, and it requires the American people to stand free. And we saw that during COVID and what that was like during COVID. So I'm going to start with a healthcare question, and then I'm going to move to Real ID. But we are a health freedom organization. I have been doing this for I'm in my 31st year. This organization is in its 28th year. I ran the one before it. We just had to change the name, but we just shut it down and started this one. So 30 years of working for health freedom in this country. And as we move into the question of Real ID, I just want you to think about healthcare, because at the end you might want to ask me a question or two about it. So just one question and 5 answers, because I like to ask this at every presentation because all of you are impacted by healthcare and we are a health freedom organization. So from 5 people, what's the worst thing about healthcare today? Oh, that was like too much. Okay, raise your hand. Vaccines. Wait, woman? Big Pharma. Someone else down here. Getting the truth from a doctor. Okay. The expense. And the last one. Trust. Okay, so all of you know that there are these problems with healthcare. And all of you, and not one of you mentioned a word about confidentiality or your privacy or the data, but some of you might actually feel that. And our organization spends a lot of time talking about privacy, because privacy protects freedom. All right, so I'm going to acquaint you with the mission of our organization, protecting patient and doctor freedom. We've been doing it since 1998, long before COVID. And I really started doing this when Bill and Hillary Clinton emerged with their plan. And so have been doing it since Bill and Hillary, and all the way through now Obamacare. And then even to President Trump, which is where we're at right now. And as you heard, we did get an executive order to allow you to not be in Medicare and still get your Social Security benefits. A lot of people don't even know the two are tied together. But it didn't get anywhere because of COVID. All right, so here's our focus. Our focus is, as an organization, high-level policy engagement. So we spend a lot of time at the legislature, different state legislators, Congress, et cetera, trying to move the needle in the legislative realm. But we are also specialized. I, as a nurse, I am an pediatric emergency room nurse, also a school nurse, really very much a nurse advocate who wants you to get the kind of care that you need, believes that the patient is the point of the healthcare system, and is doing everything possible to make sure the entire healthcare system is not dismantled or doesn't exploit you or work against you. So we provide practical on-the-ground tools for you in coercive situations in the exam room, including about data. Well, let me see here. Am I pressing the right thing? I am, and it is not working. Aha. And what we tend to do is we tend to expose myths, deceptions, and secret systems. Just happens to be who we are. So I'm going to give you 3 truths. Truth number 1, the mission of medicine has been taken over by the business of healthcare. Truth number 2, he who holds the data makes the rules. Keep this in mind when we get to Real ID. And truth number 3, privacy is the foundation of freedom. So we're going to talk today about digital surveillance, HIPAA, the electronic health record, Real ID, and the health tech ecosystem. Whoop, somehow I missed that one. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, let's start with Real ID. And as I have been here this morning or been talking in the VIP session, Real ID is a question for many people, not understanding why maybe this wouldn't be a good thing. They've heard a variety of things about it. So we're going to give you a lot of details to make you really understand what the Real ID is. So the Real ID is a federal ID masquerading as a state driver's license. In essence, the federal government has hijacked the DMVs to establish the nationalization of identification in this country and to federalize the identification and all of the things that you do with your ID. So here are some realities about the Real ID. It is patently and fully unconstitutional. It is the federal commandeering of the state governments. What you do not know is the law. So the law itself says these words. It says for the official purposes of Real ID, it includes access to federal buildings, nuclear facilities, and commercial flight. And then it adds these words, and any other purposes that the Secretary of Homeland Security shall determine. So this means one person unilaterally, currently Secretary Kristi Noem, one person who doesn't have to go back to the president or to Congress can decide that the Real ID is needed for other things. For instance, access to medical care, access to ammunition and guns, being able to purchase ammunition and guns, access to your bank, the ability to open a bank, the ability to pay taxes, the ability to go to college, the ability to get married. Anything that the secretary would determine, according to the law, it will now be a required use for a Real ID card. So you can see how broadly it is. But the other thing for you to know is that the DMVs, through their organization called the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, the DMVs testified to Congress on December 5th, 2023, that they plan to digitize the Real ID, put it on your phones, and have remote access to it. Real-time, remote access to it. And of course this is true because as soon as they digitize it, they have to have the electronic system that backs it up so that every time that you pull it out for something, you will ping the government. All right, another thing to know about it is that by rule, it requires a biometric. Now, a biometric means a part of your body in digital form. So the first biometric that they require is your face. So to collect the facial geometry of you. And they want 50 data points around your face. They need 50 data points. And the rule says that they can expand the biometrics. So they could include at some point your thumbprint, your fingerprint, your palm print, your iris scan, even down to your DNA. The rule does not limit the other biometrics that could be required. What you have to realize about this is that the government has claimed the right to collect and catalog the coordinates of your body for its control. And in essence, what's happening here is our government is creating a facial recognition system countrywide, nationwide, and you have no idea that this is happening. And you can feel a little bit of it when you fly and you're asked to stand in front of that camera at the TSA checkpoint. Now, most people don't notice that it says that you can opt out, and I do encourage you to opt out. And you can certainly, during the Q&A, ask me more questions about that and how that process works. And so then the last thing for you to understand, if you take the broadness of all the things that they could require you to have a Real ID for, and then you put it together with digital, and then you put it together with biometric control, and what you're really looking at is a China-like social credit system. Or what's happening today in England, where they're moving toward a carbon credit system. They actually, Coca-Cola sponsored a 4-week study to put on their food products in the grocery stores the percentage of their carbon allowance that each particular food what percentage did that consume of food? That's where England is moving toward a fully digital ID. They are protesting in the streets against the digital ID, but Americans are not protesting in the streets because the frog is being cooked slowly. And you do not realize what the real ID is. So in essence, what's happening here is the development of an internal or domestic passport for all of life in this country. And eventually, because the sky's the limit in the law, according to whatever the Secretary of Homeland Security shall determine, it could be every transaction, access to anything, movement, we don't know. And it was Congressman Thomas Massey who said, you don't know what they're going to do with Real ID until everyone has one. But I'm here to tell you that our organization is leading the charge to make sure that their efforts are thwarted, and we never get to the point that everyone has one or even a majority of people have one. So it's a very big campaign that we've got here, and I'm so grateful for all of you to be here because you have a lot of other friends and people that you rub shoulders with that you can start asking them to pull out their identification card and you can start telling them the story. Here is the Real ID Act, just to point out how it really says what I said it says about official purposes, where it says, and any other purposes that the Secretary shall determine. And here we are as a health policy organization, which to some people seems very strange, dealing with the Real ID issue and being the national force, to stop the thing. But I really feel, I'm a Christian, so I really feel that God, back in 1997, when the governor of Minnesota decided to create a MIN card that was going to have access to your phone, your medical records, it was going to be your driver's license, it was going to be how you would access your bank, and it was all going to be contracted out by the government so that the government could have just shut it down and you wouldn't have had access to your bank, to the doctor's office or anything. 1997, Minnesota, at the very beginning of our organization, I looked at that and thought, that's a terrible thing for freedom in this country, and started to fight it. And so, I've been in this battle since 1997, and I think that's why, I don't know why God, chose to do it, but he did. And so we really feel like as a health policy organization, it will be no card, no care. The most obvious next thing for them to do for a Real ID as a mandated requirement to use it and to get all of you to agree to do it is to say you need it to go to the doctor. You need it to be hospitalized. And why is that the most obvious next thing? Because the government funds 47% of all healthcare spending. They could easily say, in order to stop fraud, we need everybody to use their Real ID in order to see a doctor. So that's a big reason why we are in the fight. Now, when we look at what happened, so I've had some surprising stories today in this church because this is the system that the DMVs have across the country. It's called the SPECS system, State Pointer Exchange Services Platform. And when you go to, let's just say you move to California from Oregon, and it's possible that California doesn't participate. I think that might be why we have some strange stories. So let me just say, if you move from Michigan to Minnesota, Minnesota would not give you another driver's license until the other one was canceled. And they use this system to know exactly where you've got another license. But we have heard that there's about 5 states that don't participate, and maybe it's California, because I've run into one person here who has both IDs, Real ID and standard state driver's license. I see somebody else, same thing. That would never happen in Minnesota because they use the SPEC system. All right, now you're wondering, how can I possibly get rid of my Real ID because I need it to fly? Well, you can't fly is a lie, and it's a long-told lie, but it's absolutely true, and here are the 4 reasons why it's a lie. First, there are a total of 16 identification cards that the TSA accepts for you to get onto a plane. Second, I want you to, anybody who's scared, just get a passport and a passport card. And the passport card is the same size as a driver's license. You can carry it anywhere. And then the third thing to know is that it's a 2-year. The rule that came out in January says that there's a 2-year progressive enforcement period. They aren't even planning. So you heard you had to have it by May 7th of this year, but they didn't tell you that their actual full enforcement date is May 5th of 2027. But here was Kristi Noem in April of this year on a video saying if you come to the airport without a real ID, you will not be able to travel. Now she's under this rule, and this rule was written to prevent cacophony at the airport and chaos. So she would know that that was not true, but she said it anyway. On May 6th, the day before the May 7th supposed deadline, she testified to Congress that no, if people don't come with their real ID, it'll just take a few more security steps, but we will make sure that they meet their travel itinerary. But then the very next day, let me see, is this the next one? Yeah. Here's her Instagram from the very next day on May 7th. And she said, today, May 7th, you will need a real ID to fly. And that's not true. And the other reason it's not true, let's see, does that work? Oh, I'll just tell you what it is. It's back on the other slide, is that how many of you have lost your ID or had it stolen right before you had to fly and then flew anyway? Anybody? Right. And that will always be the case, because someday you're going to lose, if we all had real IDs, which our organization aims to make sure never happens, but let's just say it happened. Somebody would steal it, somebody would lose it. They have always had a process to get you through the airport without any ID whatsoever. And I don't know about the rest of you, but it happened to me. And they took me to this little table with a phone on it. 2 chairs, 1 phone. The TSA agent sat on one side, I sat on the other side. He picked up the phone, gave my name, and started asking me questions. What was your first email address? What was the color of your first car? What was the color of the first house that you ever lived in? What city were you born in? Until he was convinced that I was who I am, and then he did a little search, and then on the plane I went. And that is the same thing that will always happen. All right, so let's just talk about the biometrics part of Real ID, because it's really important that you understand this is not just in America, this is across the world. So here's a statement from the head of Homeland Security in 2007, 2 years after Real ID passed in 2005, and the very year the first rule came out. We're starting the process of biometrifying a good portion of the world population. We're biometrifying. So they're gathering your body parts, claiming them essentially as government property, putting them in a database, and likely with the idea that there will be a global identification system into which all of us will be, which is very un-American. But the other thing you need to know with the Real ID is these other things with a biometric digital ID. We believe it will be the controversial vaccine passport, that across the world they had vaccine passports that limited what people could do as to whether or not they had the COVID shot or not. And they tried to implement it here in the United States, and it did not fly. But if we all move to a digital biometric Real ID, I believe that it will become a vaccine passport. I believe it will also become a link to a unique patient identifier tying all of your medical records together wherever they happen to be and whatever they happen to say without your consent. And then, as I said, global digital IDs under biometric control, facial recognition or other. So let's just talk about biometric control. Now here is IDEMIA. I guess there. I've seen it there. Here is IDEMIA. Now, IDEMIA is seeing you, and I'd like you to see IDEMIA. IDEMIA has a $46 million contract with the TSA. It also has a multi-million-dollar contract with a border, Customs and Border Patrol. It also has a multi-million-dollar contract with the General Services Administration, plus 2 other agencies within the federal government. So IDEMIA is a French company, and it is creating the driver's licenses for approximately 40 states in America. So I don't know if IDEMIA is creating California driver's licenses and ID cards, but there are about 40 states that provide all this information to IDEMIA to do this. Now, IDEMIA, how many of you fly? Okay. How many of you have noticed the word IDEMIA at the TSA checkpoint? Huh? Alex, of course you would, Alex. So just look the next time that you go through the TSA checkpoint. You will see the IDEMIA equipment surrounding the TSA agent. If you are in the DMV, and if IDEMIA is doing the state driver's license, you will see an IDEMIA camera. They are taking biometric digital photos, and they are controlling travel in this country. They also have their cameras around the airport and at ports of entry. So like, you know, if you go take a cruise, they're likely checking your face as you come and go. So IDEMIA's whole goal is what's called augmented authentication. That's the words they use, augmented authentication. In other words, they don't want you to use papers anymore. They want your body to be your ID. And here in this, what you see here, is you can see they plan to be able to capture who you are from at least 12 to 20 feet away. And in Europe, people have told me that as they are approaching the gates about 20 feet away, their name pops up. They're in the system. And then you can see how they grab the 50 points of your face and then the iris scan. So don't look in that camera. So you are your ID. This is from Clear. This is the words from Clear. But this is where the entire system is going. And who of you can change your face? Like, so there's a lot of fraud happening within the biometrics industry. Taking your face, taking your thumbprint, taking whatever body part it is that's in the computer. And you can't change your face. You could change your social security number, you could change your passwords, but you can't change your face. So it's really, it's a security risk for you personally. It's a security risk for the country. So here are, this is my request for all of you, because their whole plan is to get 100% of you to comply. They've already got 100% of the states to comply. But they've got only 56% of Americans to comply. And now we are working to make sure that Americans switch back. And so instead of 44% being non-compliant, there'll be 46 and 48 and 50. Their whole goal is to get y'all in the system, and your goal should be to make sure you are never in there, so you can thwart their plans. So we have refuserealid.org. It's a place where you can get lots of different handouts, some of them that are already printed for you out on the table outside. But there are other ones. And there's also a map now that we added just about a week ago for people who have made the switch or people who have tried to make the switch and haven't succeeded. And I think what we are finding from that is rogue DMV agents. Rogue DMV agents. Because we have people making the switch in that map in all but 5 states. Because 5 states don't give you a choice. Texas, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, and Wyoming, all Republican states who have mandated the Real ID. So But interestingly enough, in our little checkbox where they can say, I tried to make a switch, but it didn't work, we have people from all sorts of states saying they couldn't switch. But on the map where it says I made the switch, we have people from almost all the states. Well, what does that mean? It means they've got a rogue DMV agent who doesn't have a rule, doesn't have a law to back them up. Because otherwise, other people in the state couldn't be making the switch. So I just had somebody, just before I started speaking here, who made the switch, but really had an agent essentially threatening her that she would have to go through the entire test of whether she could drive again if she made the switch. She did get the switch made, but you see rogue DMV agents who just want to do the government's bidding here and not the constitutional thing to do. Okay, here are some of the documents that we have, including the middle one, lose the real ID. If you're even worried about making the switch, feel free to just go here, click on that, and the whole thing pops up. You can print it out. We've had really good results from that, but we've also had people in California say it was easy peasy to make the switch. So I think it will depend on the DMV agent. Here we've got little pocket cards that you can pass out, and they can go to refuserealid.org and figure out, what's up with Real ID. We also have them out at the table. You can send people to the Dark Horse podcast or to this one, but the Dark Horse podcast has, I think now 476,000 views of the interview that I did with Brett Weinstein. It's his 9th most popular in 8 years. So it's a really hot topic because people don't understand what Real ID is, and they're worried once they hear. We also put up a few billboards. We got another one coming up, I think, in Minnesota. And now we're going to move to HIPAA. And during Q&A, feel free to ask questions about Real ID. Feel free to ask questions about any of these topics. But HIPAA is another thing where you think something and it's not true. Probably, for most of you. Because HIPAA has been sold as a federal privacy rule. But it did the exact opposite. It's taken away all of your privacy rights. Oops, wrong way. So what is HIPAA? It's a 1996 law. It's a 2003 rule. But it's actually a permissive data sharing rule. So even though you are told that you have to step, stay 10 feet behind at the pharmacy counter, or maybe they won't tell you if so-and-so is in the hospital because of HIPAA, whatever it is, right? The fact of the matter is, under the surface where you can't see it, your data is being shared broadly without your consent. So HIPAA allows your data to be digitized, and it allows it to be put online. Of course, it's a private online. It's not like anybody can just go into it. But it allows it to be put online without your consent. Here's the book I wrote, Big Brother in the Exam Room, which talks about HIPAA, and it talks about the electronic health record mandate and how dangerous that is for medical care. So let's just talk about the electronic health record. I wonder what you think about the electronic health record. I wonder if you think it's a convenience, it's handy, or maybe you think, wow, my doctor doesn't look at me anymore. It's just clicking away in that machine. Well, here's the thing you need to know. In 2009, 4 weeks after President Obama was inaugurated, exactly 4 weeks, he signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and within that act was the HITECH Act, the Health Information Technology for Economic and Clinical Health Act. And it mandated electronic health records. And there are penalties for doctors or hospitals that refuse to do electronic health records. There are penalties. They don't get paid as much. So you might think that that computer sitting in your exam room or at the bedside is there because the doctors and the hospitals thought it was convenient or a good thing to do, but that is not true. Not only do they get paid less if they don't use this government certified electronic health record, can't be just any health record. It's got to be the government certified version to do what the government wants it to do. If they don't use it meaningfully, according to the government's definitions, they also get paid less. So the fact of the matter is that the electronic record electronic health record is not a medical record. It collects financial information. It's how what the doctor uses to actually make orders, treatment orders, pharmaceutical orders, all sorts of orders. And if those who created the electronic health record or own it, like the hospital system or the healthcare system, they don't have what's best for you, if it's not in there, they can't order it without a lot of pain. So that's why I called my book Big Brother in the Exam Room, The Dangerous Truth About Electronic Health Records. The EHR controls your doctor. So this is what a doctor said, who's also a health IT expert. He calls the EHRs an enterprise-wide command and control system through which all medical transactions have to pass, controlling clinicians and clinical resources. In other words, it controls doctors and it controls treatments. It limits treatment according to what it's populated with. Now, prior to the HITECH Act, only 10% of hospitals had electronic health records, and they weren't the government certified version, and they didn't have to follow meaningful use regulations or be penalized. So the electronic health record was put in place by government for government purposes. And as a result, because it's an unfunded mandate and it's very expensive, doctors have become employees. About 75% of them are now corporate employees, and so they're not their own boss, and they don't work for you. They work for the corporation. And as a result, also, small hospitals merged because they couldn't afford the electronic health record mandate and the meaningful use regulations. The EHR has something else that it does. It facilitates automation. So physicians are gradually being replaced with non-physicians. And so non-physicians who do not have the same medical expertise, the same years of experience, the same Hippocratic oath that they have attested to. And so all of those years of expertise, and a lot of doctors are leaving early, and in some cases health plans or healthcare systems are actually getting rid of a healthcare provider so that AI could prescribe medication without a human. So you can kind of see where this is going through the computer. Now, just to show you, this is all the places where your data can go because of HIPAA and because of the electronic health record. Before HIPAA and before the mandate for the electronic health record, if your doctor would have shared your data without your consent, they could have been taken to court. It would have been illegal and a criminal offense, and you could have taken them to court. But as a result, this is from the Harvard Privacy Lab. This is all the ways and the places that your data can be used, some of it with your name and some of it without your name. But nonetheless, you're the owner of your medical record. You're the owner of the information on your body and your life and the things that you have said in a doctor's office. And how many of you, I just have to ask this, how many of you have come into an exam room recently and been asked, or not even asked, but told, if you stay in the exam room, your entire conversation will be recorded. And that if you stay in that exam room, that is giving consent to that happening. So they're putting recorders. The last time that happened to me, I said, where is this recorder? And it was on the doctor's phone, because I wanted to know where in the room it was. So every word that you say to your doctor being recorded. Now, most of them will say you can talk to your doctor if you don't want this to happen. But I'm here to tell you as a nurse that every time you enter the exam room or the hospital, I don't care what you are in your private life, you are a vulnerable person. Whatever you need, you cannot get unless they give it to you. And I have talked to so many patients who are so afraid to go up against the doctor or the nurse or the system or anything because they're afraid they're going to make the doctor or the nurse or the staff or whomever angry. So they're not going to speak up, and they're just going to let every word that they say in that exam room be recorded. So this is a terrible thing, because the exam room should be a sanctuary where you say anything you have to say, no matter how embarrassing it might be or how necessary you might think it is. You need to be able to have the freedom to say it. But now they're starting to record every word in the exam room. They have brought outsiders into the exam room to listen in to your conversations, to your life. All right, and so what all of this has led to is now we have a national medical record system. It's called the eHealth Exchange. I'd like to know how many of you have ever heard of it. No. So the government funded the eHealth Exchange, and if you go in, you can see who in your town, which healthcare system, which clinics, which doctors are all part of it. And this is how they're able to share information without your consent across the country. If you happen to be in Washington and Florida and Washington, D.C., and you're from California, and you go see a doctor and they say something to you, and you're like, well, how did you know that? Is they're probably part of the eHealth Exchange. Yep. Hello. Okay, come on. There we go. In 2010, this is how it looked. This is how HHS put it in a book. And the red circle that you see there is the internet. And the blue hubs are like your clinics, hospitals, et cetera. And then you've got on the outside all the government agencies and the data industry, et cetera. That was 2010. This is today. The largest health information network, and they say they are dedicated to the public good. Well, I disagree about that. They call themselves a network of networks. So the state might have a network. California has a network. You actually have a network right in here. I'm going to show you a picture. And so it's a network of network, and they just connect it all, and all without your consent, data can be exchanged with all those individuals. And you'll see here on the eHealth Exchange, 34 states are in the eHealth Exchange, 75% of all hospitals and health systems, 70,000 medical groups, 58 regional and state health information exchanges, 70 public health jurisdictions, that's the government, and then 5 federal agencies, that's the government, all in this exchange. Now here's a story out of Twitter, or a tweet, an X post. And here's somebody who really figured this out and just asked her or his doctor a question. I remember the stunned look on my primary doc's face when I told her no one had asked my permission to put my personal medical records online and demanded she keep a paper file only on me. See, nobody did ask your permission. The government just decided that your information is so valuable, and the healthcare industry and the data industry, they're the ones. In my book, I tell the history of how that happened and who the players were and what they wanted it for. So I'm here to tell you, you can protect yourself to some degree from HIPAA, but it is a limited degree, and the best thing of all to do is to get your state legislators to write a real privacy law. I'm also here to say that privacy is a bipartisan issue. So no matter how Democrat this state may be, or whoever your legislator is, if they would even understand what HIPAA really is, they might be willing to write a law. Minnesota has the strongest law in the nation, and it protects us from HIPAA. But to my knowledge, there's no other state in the nation that has a law similar. And we have some model legislation that any state could use, but we have saved that law in Minnesota. When the Democrats were in control, we found the privacy-interested Democrats to save it. And when the Republicans were in control, we found the Republicans who wanted to save it. But we also battled Republicans and Democrats who didn't want to save it. But it is a nonpartisan issue. Ask for a real state privacy law, refuse to sign the notice of privacy practices. I'll tell you more about that in the Q&A and a little bit later. guard what you say at the doctor's office, which is really terrible, even to say that as a nurse. Ask the doctor to send the scribe away. Unless you're okay with that third-party person clicking away in the exam room, send the scribe away. And then there's also the virtual scribe, which is the one that they're starting to tell you about and saying if you stay in the room, you've given consent. Refuse the virtual scribe, or like I did with my doctor recently, I said, shut that thing off. I don't want that. Pay cash and find a doctor in the wedge of health freedom. So we created an online directory of cash-based doctors, and one of the things they have to agree to is that the data doesn't leave the clinic. Here it is, jointhewedge.com. You do have practices in this state that are in the wedge. Refusing to sign the HIPAA form. We have, let me see, it's here. Yeah, okay. Refuse to sign. This is the worst one. There are at least 5 ways you'll be asked to sign the HIPAA form. By law, you don't have to sign the HIPAA form. It's part of convincing you that HIPAA protects your privacy. And we went to Congress. We had 22 meetings in 1 week. And at each of those meetings, we said, so what does it mean when you're asked to sign that HIPAA form in the doctor's office? And this is the staff of these members of Congress, and everyone, almost to the same word, said, it means that my information is between me and my doctor. So the staff of Congress doesn't know what HIPAA is. They believe, as much as probably all of you, that HIPAA protects your privacy when it doesn't. And so we ask you not to sign. The law says you don't have to sign. It's just part of the ruse, part of the deliberate deception to convince you that your privacy is protected, so you will speak freely in the exam room. So you will be calm. So you will answer all those intrusive questionnaires that have nothing to do with whatever you're there for, because you're like, HIPAA protects it, right? So this is the worst one, because they'll just point to it and say, sign there. And you'll say, what's that? And they'll say, oh, it's that HIPAA form. And then you'll sign. But what other official legal document do you ever sign without seeing any of the words? So we have something that will show you how to refuse to sign, how to not be part of the deception, because by law you can. And this is the very best way to do it. When you're out there on our table, or when you come to our website and you get the discharge instructions, we tell you for all 5 ways that they present this to you. Some more obvious, some more sneaky, some embedded, how to do it. But this is the very best way. You go to this website from HHS where they say, the law does not require you to sign the acknowledgement of receipt of the notice. And then the 4th bullet says, if you refuse to sign the acknowledgement, the provider must keep a record of this fact. So I always go in with this on my phone, and I bring up the form or the iPad or whatever, and I say, this is why I'm not signing HIPAA. And I show it to them. And I just start at the top so they can see it's the HHS website, and then I scroll and I see right there it says, by law, I don't have to sign. And right here it says, by law, you're the one who has to write that I refuse. Thank you very much. And then I hand them the papers. And that has stopped. I've never gotten any pushback. Any other way tends to get pushback, but that's the best one of all. Here's the discharge instructions, 6 ways to refuse HIPAA, but I just showed you the best one. And then the last thing here is the new health tech ecosystem. So I want you to know, so President Trump, I think it was in July, and his staff came out and said, we're going to do this new thing, the health technology ecosystem. And it sounded like it was going to be a great deal for you because, you know, your doctor would be able to get your records from wherever your records are, and you wouldn't have to do all of this transferring and signing consent forms and all this sort of thing. Everything would transfer very easily. So I just want to show you what this is and just tell you it's sort of like making HIPAA worse. So here's the current health technology ecosystem as it is, and prepare to be confused. So I just want you to be prepared, but not dismayed. All right, here you go. So these are things probably you've never even heard of. TEFCA, the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement. That's a government entity. And all these data systems sign this to say what they're going to do with your data or not. Care quality, interoperability, framework adopters. See, there's 600,000 physicians in there. There's 50,000 plus healthcare clinics. You've probably never heard of Care Quality or TEFCA. The eHealth Exchange is up there on the right-hand side. And then here's on the bottom are all these different, they're called QUIN. You know, when you're in this business, you get used to these things. And you can see these QHIN, Quality Health Information Network. This is how it's all working. And it says in here, one benefit of TEFCA is the large volumes of data are already flowing through health information networks. This is where it is today. This is before President Trump's initiative. And so government, on the left side, government, your data, your doctor and hospital push things to public health. That's what it says, push data to public health. And that it goes one way. On the other side, they pull it. They request data from the healthcare system, the government does, like to report immunizations, cancer, birth defects, all of these things. But the goal is this whole thing where it just goes up and down and up and down and up and down, and the government is fully aware of everything that's happening in the exam room and regularly collecting the information. So these diagrams are from the government itself. So California, I thought I'd just do a little looking at California. So state health information exchanges, California has the most in the United States with a total of 15. Now I realize you're awfully big, right? But I thought that was interesting that you have the most in the nation. And this is the total number of active health information exchanges within California, dark purple. Now, here are these qualified health information networks. Not many. I shouldn't say not many. That's right. I found them right in your area. No, not many. This is a not many one. You actually don't have a lot of them in California. So you can see it's just over there, which is, you can see where San Jose is, and it's over there. So I just picked out one so you could kind of see it. But you've got 1,300 in care quality all around here. Practices, facilities, hospitals, practitioners, and schools all exchanging information with each other without your consent. And you have no idea what they're doing with it. You have no idea what they're sharing. You have no idea how often they're sharing. And they don't have to tell you because of HIPAA. Okay, one more time. Let's go. Okay, I just put a few quotes here about care quality. And since you have a lot of care quality in here. So we are excited to be accessing clinical data from hospitals and external sources. That was one medical group. Sutter supports broad clinical information exchange for improved care coordination. And then the bottom one, we are excited to access and share a more complete patient profile for such patients. But this is not good enough. So now we have this new health tech ecosystem that was introduced by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in the federal government. And so they're trying to sell the system here by saying that the Centers for Medicaid Services is creating core infrastructure, secure data access, national healthcare directory, and a modernized system. The data must come from you. They're trying to get you to be calm about all this data coming from you. But they're saying this is not mandated, it's just compliant. It's not compliance, it's built on collaboration. They're calling for voluntary alignment around a shared framework for data and access. And so, are you sold at this idea of your data being shared even more broadly than it is today? So this is what they say. They want to modernize the nation's digital health ecosystem, which is plagued by complexity, high cost, plagued by fragmentation, outdated infrastructure, and it's hard to get quality data. And they want to make health tech great again. And here are some of the data networks that have agreed. So they've taken the pledge. We pledge to work collaboratively to implement the CMS interoperability framework. So the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services Interoperability Framework, you'll see in there, eHealth Exchange is in there, Oracle Health, which is Epic and Oracle Health, which are two of the biggest EHR or electronic health record systems. And here are the payers, and you can see Medicare and United Health Group, the largest health plan in the country and in the world, is in here too, pledging to participate in the CMS Aligned Network and work collaboratively to enable this interoperability framework for sharing data. This is a movement, not a mandate. That's what they say. It's a call to action, not regulation. So they're saying it's all voluntary. But you know, for all of you, it's not voluntary. There's nothing voluntary about it. And then I just threw this one in because now that you know about Real ID, look at the second quote. CMS is working to add modern digital identity to Medicare.gov this year, exploring approaches that enhance security without disrupting current user accounts and services. So what if Real ID is required to access Medicare? Ultimately, what they think is that your data is their data. It's public data. They're going to do really great things with it, and you shouldn't have any problem with it. And here's a meeting of a group that helped to create the eHealth Exchange. And they have this one slide here about using data beyond treatment. So you may or may not like the idea that they think all that data and all those questionnaires that you are filling out could be used for other things. So here's their statement. They want to establish a shared understanding and agreement on minimum necessary. That's a HIPAA phrase, minimum necessary. That's all they're supposed to share. But they want a shared understanding and agreement on minimum necessary. So minimum necessary is not a concrete word, and they want to all agree together what it is. And that it's essential for enabling exchange beyond treatment purposes. They're going to have this panel discussion to navigate this complex issue to support the exchange of information for public health and healthcare operations and trust frameworks. So it's not just about giving you care, it's about public health, which is the government, and then healthcare operations, which is everything under the sun. There it is, the definition of healthcare operations. And all of the different things, there's 65 business activities, all the data industry, legal entities, all sorts of things. And this is another thing they're gathering data for, social determinants of health. How many of you have gotten a questionnaire in the doctor's office that specifically says, this is the social determinants of health, right? They're trying to figure out everything in your life and how it impacts your life, from education to income to race to everything you can think of, your housing, access to care, transportation, education, everything. So the electronic health record is becoming a dossier on your life. And what you have to do is decide how willing are you to help them create it. Epic's the biggest electronic health record system in the country. And Judith Falkland, the CEO and owner, she says she doesn't want it to be an electronic health record anymore. She wants it to be a comprehensive health record, a CHR. She wants to know how long you sleep, what you eat. That's what she said. I quote her in my book. She wants to know all this information and believes it should be in here. And keep in mind that the government has access to this record. Oop. I actually accidentally went forward. Whoop, okay. All right. So now, that's it on HIPAA, that's it on the health technology ecosystem. Coming here to bring you sort of things I think that you don't know and how privacy would protect you against all of this. And how all of this is happening outside your awareness. But there's two other things, and I thought I'd throw them in right at the end of my speech here. Baby DNA warehousing. California actually has been in the news probably several years ago about this, and a Democrat tried to stop this. But after newborn screening, they collect the DNA. So that newborn screening, they pull the blood out of the heel, and then they keep it. They keep it at the government level, and they are selling it. They say they're not selling it. They say this is just the cost of giving these punches to researchers. But I tell you this because if you got grandchildren, going to have a new baby or whatever, see if you can get private testing instead so that the government doesn't keep your baby's DNA and keep it forever. There's a bunch of states keeping it forever, and there have been 6 lawsuits so far. And then organ donation. Uniform Anatomical Gift Act lets them take your organs even though you don't have donor on your card. There's an entire process. Every state has passed the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. This is our card that we provide for you, that you refuse to be an organ donor. And as you probably know, HHS has discovered that they've been taking organs before the person is really confirmed to be in a bad situation and won't recover. And some doctors have actually gone in and stopped the organ transfer from happening, and the person has lived. So protect yourself. Don't believe that organ donation is all about being good. It's an entire industry, and they're pushing for people to give up their organs before the person is even dead or even, anywhere close. So you can find those cards on the display table. This is who I am, and this is how you can connect with me. We are 100% donor supported, don't receive any government grants, so anybody who would like to support our work to protect patient doctor freedom in this country, feel free, and then just know that there's much at stake in the fight for health freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Twila. That was super interesting and informative, and thank you for doing the research for us out here in our own city and state, even when you live halfway across the country. So thank you, Twila, for coming, and we really appreciate it. So we'll have her back up in just a minute for Q&A, so start thinking of any questions you have for her. But in the meantime, we're going to do a quick offering, so if the ushers would like to come forward. And as I say, each month, these donations go straight into the ministry to print and make the flyers, to provide the scholarships for our Standing on the Word students, for being able to bring these wonderful speakers out and be able to have them bring us information and such great data from their experience and from their history and from their vast levels of knowledge. So Twila's been at this for about 30 years now, which is amazing. So way before the modern crowd of getting into medical freedom and privacy, sort of during the COVID years. But of course, that's what really got a lot of people interested over the last few years, especially with the modernization of medical records and all of that, what that entails, and the access to that. So as I was sitting there listening to Twila, I was thinking because cybersecurity is my industry. So whatever you have there basically gives the ability for someone to access, whether or not it is protected on the outside. It just provides more of a treasure trove of access. And that's actually what one thing Twila and I were talking about as well with the Real ID, is it basically provides all of your vital records in one place, which is easier to access as you provide more and more data in for validating the Real ID or other types of identification. So, how do we modernize the records, but also keep it safe and private at the same time? So it sounds like that's a lot of time becoming more of a legislative issue. So we appreciate your guys' giving. Thank you for that. Again, we're able to bring in Inez next month as well, probably one of the sort of biggest names outside of the conservative circles, and we were able to secure him to come next month thanks to your generous giving. And so we're thrilled to have him coming, and be sure to sign up for him and also that VIP meet and greet as well. But Twila, if you'd like to come back up, and if you'd like to line up here for any questions and answers. Also, Twila will be back at her table afterwards. She has a whole treasure trove of information back there, as well as 3 books. So she brought 3 books. They're $25 each. And if you'd like to buy more books from her, you can talk to her afterwards. She'll probably autograph it too for a few extra bucks. No, I'm just kidding. But we want to give to Twila and thank her for coming out. So we want to make sure those 3 books are gone by the end of the night, and hopefully she'll be able to sell some more. So you got your mic? Perfect. All right, well, welcome. Let's go at it with questions. Yep, looks like it's good.
Thank you for the information. Very informative. I did have a question. You did speak a little bit about opting out of Medicare. Without affecting Social Security.
Oh, yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so first question up is having to do with opting out of Medicare. So this will be probably a shocker to most people because that's just usually what it is. The fact of the matter is that the Clintons tied Medicare and Social Security together in 1993. There's no law that does it. There's no rule. There's no public comment. They simply put it in an operations manual, and it's been followed ever since. So that if you do not enroll in Medicare, you will not get your Social Security benefits. And a bigger shocker is that if you are in Medicare and you decide it's rationing your life away or you want your secondary insurance instead, you will be forced, the Clintons did this as well, you will be forced to pay back every dime of Social Security and Medicare you have received to date. So I do believe that Hillary's whole plan was to make sure you could never get out of Medicare, so just put it in there. So it took us 3 years to get an executive order from President Trump to separate those 2 programs. And then that was just shortly before COVID. And that just derailed the entire process. But now we have the Retirement Freedom Act. And the Retirement Freedom Act has Senator Ted Cruz and Congressman Gary Palmer in Alabama. And they are authors of a really short bill. It's like a page and a fifth long. It's really short, easy to read, and it just says that people can leave Medicare and get their Social Security benefits anyway. So there's probably not a lot of people at this moment who would like to, but Medicare is 8 years from insolvency, at which point it will only be able to pay 89% of its bills. In 2022, 89% of its bills would have been $99.95 billion of bills. So it was derailed, but we're working on it.
Hi, Twila. Great talk. Hi. Isn't she great? Yes. So I'm in a little bit of a dilemma right now because I want to mail in my passport to the passport agency to get a passport card, which is easier to carry than my passport, right? Because I've been forgetting to put my passport in my purse when I fly, and and I don't want to keep it in my purse, on a day-to-day basis in case I lose it, right? So if I turn in my passport to the passport agency, they take it for 4 to 6 weeks, and then they mail back the passport and the passport card. But I've heard that when the passport comes, that it's heavier, so it's got some sort of tracking device in it, and it probably has biometrics also. And so I'm trying to understand, that's going to put me in the system anyway when I have to renew my passport or when I want to get the passport card, right?
Yeah.
So that's an additional risk in addition to the Real ID. But I think by refusing the Real ID, we're sending a really strong message. But I think the passport is just, it's another landmine, right?
Okay, so this is a really great question. Thank you, Alex, for asking it. Because people say, well, why should I get one federal ID if you don't want me to get the other federal ID? But the fact of the matter is a passport and a passport card are very specific things, like get you out of the country, get you back into the country. And of course, using it when you're outside of the country. But a Real ID would be an internal passport. So it wouldn't be just to get you it wouldn't be to get you in and out of the country. It would be to perhaps, potentially in the future, get you in and out of a state and another state. How broadly could it be? So the passport is very, very limited, but the real ID could be very, very expansive. And so, where'd you go, Alex? There you go. And so, and so it's not the same thing at all. Unfortunately, yes, it's a biometric photo, and there's nothing that you can do about that, but it's a very limited purpose. The real ID is very expansive. No, because they don't want your passport. They don't want you to have to carry your passport book around, require it for renting a car, require it for opening a bank account. No, it's really very, very specific purpose, but the real ID is a whole different can of worms.
So it is less obtrusive.
Less obtrusive. The passport is, yes. I'm sorry, because these questions are not. What do you want to do?
Let's keep going. Okay. So, yeah, but follow up then. Okay, so I think to synthesize what Twila's saying, though, is the passport is already an identified document that for the past 150, roughly 100 years, 100 to 150 years has an established use and purpose.
Yeah.
The real ID is a new form of identification that is verified with a birth certificate and a passport. So if you use your passport, is that sort of a verified form of ID that we've already been using for the past 150 years? Real ID is something new?
Real ID is totally new, because Real ID has a totally different purpose.
Yeah.
I heard a California legislator, a Republican, wants to require Real ID for voting.
Right.
Keep in mind, Real ID is under federal control. It's a federal ID under federal control, masquerading as a state ID. So it is the commandeering of the state. Real ID is the commandeering of the state. That makes it unconstitutional. It's against the 10th Amendment. And in the beginning, 2007, 8, and 9, approximately 25 states passed laws against conforming with Real ID and created, not proposals, what do you want to call those things, or whatever. But it's a statement, a resolution against Real ID. And so it went nowhere. For 9 years, it went nowhere. And then President Obama in late 2015 said, you won't be able to fly in 2016 without Real ID. The media, for the first time, picked this up, heralded it across the country. Constituents all became scared to death that they couldn't get to their summer home, their winter home, their children, their travel, their whatever, right? And they told legislators, fix this. So unlike the 25 or so states that said no to the federal government early, this time all the legislators over a period of 3 years bowed to the federal government. They allowed the federal government to take over and to nationalize identification in this country. So this is a very big deal, and it's very different than the passport, because the passport is the federal government saying, yes, you can come in, no, you can't come in, right? This is the federal government saying, yes, you can buy a car. Yes, you can vote. No, you can't vote. The federal government. We have a country of 50 states. And the federal government is supposed to be limited. So this is an extraordinary federal encroachment on our rights.
All right, let's go next. My friend, she moved away, okay? And then she got sick. She got COVID, and then they gave her the vaccine, which she didn't want, and it gave her dementia. Now I can't reach her because of HIPAA. So I've been trying to get a hold of her for like 3-4 weeks, and she's in a facility, but they won't give me any information with her name and her ID for us to visit her, because there's some scrupulous things going on trying to take her assets and her home and stuff. So do you have any recommendations?
Since you're only friends, right?
Yeah.
You're friends. The best thing to do is to contact the family. So I have no idea about all of the legal things that she may have had, power of attorney, all of that kind of thing. That might give some power in. They might be using HIPAA as the reason why you can't get access to that information. Sometimes a spouse who has a spouse in a hospital can't even get information on their spouse because of HIPAA. And yet, all of this information about that spouse is just flowing hither and yon across the country. So this is not a good question for me to answer because I'm not going to have sufficient information. But what I can say is that the family or the power of attorney is where you really have to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much. I had two little things. What if you already had the real ID, you turned it in and you got your driver's license? Does that mean you're out of the real ID system?
Yeah, okay, so that's another very good point. So the Real ID is a card, but it's also a Real ID system. So you're not totally out of the Real ID system because this is a little bit in the weeds, my apologies, but the federal government, when they told the states to conform, told the states to conform with both the Real ID and the non-Real ID, which is why the non-Real ID has words on it that say something like, not for federal identification purposes or something like that. But the thing to understand is the federal government wants everybody in the Real ID. And somebody just asked me at the VIP reception about, well, they have all the data anyway, so what do I care? Well, they don't have all the data. And there's a lot of data that they want to get as soon as they have everybody in, and so that they can have more of this control, more of this social credit system. And you know, you might not be concerned with Trump in office, although he's got Kristi Noem telling lies. And I think, my guess is that Trump doesn't even understand the Real ID issue, right? But just imagine if you got Gavin Newsom administration. Imagine the 15-minute cities he would like to keep you in. They want to digitize the Real ID. They don't want to digitize the not for federal purposes ID. So this is why it's really important to switch away from the Real ID into the non-Real ID, the state driver's license version.
This thing called the healthcare portal, like when you go to your doctor,
Yes.
and you do your blood work, and you don't hear from them. They're
Right.
like, oh, didn't you go to your portal?
Right.
No, I don't go to the portal. Is that portal a way for them to get the information into where you're saying?
Yeah, the portal. So I refuse the portal. I don't do the portal. That is one of the ways that they can get you. It's two things. One, it's very lazy. It's very lazy. Because they should be coming to you with your results and explaining them to you, not requiring you to go in and hope that you can interpret whatever it says in there, right? It's just like really wrong to do. But the other thing is they're hoping you'll correct information in there. You will add information to the record and build up your profile.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so question for you then, following up on that, because I don't want to reject modernity just prima facie for being modern. So how then would you say we could modernize the system, go digital, be able to share amongst healthcare professionals while keeping privacy? Cybersecurity being an issue in and of itself, which is a problem. Right. Privacy being an issue in and of itself, and technological advancement being an issue in and of itself. Because I don't want to reject, digital records on the face of just them being digital or just going to paper records, because, like my grandparents were cross-medicated, almost died because paper records, doctors don't check the paper records, they don't get passed from one department to the other. So in that continuity of care, that's hugely beneficial and helpful. So is that a legislative issue? How do we prevent that without just saying, we're going paper records, no portals, I don't want to, yeah. You see what I'm getting at? So how can we keep that continuity of care across digital records?
Yeah, so apparently in Canada, I just wanted to say this. In Canada, the patient was responsible for their own records and took them from doctor to doctor. and so therefore knew everything about their own health, and the doctor expected them to have this kind of information on hand. Now, with doctors spending all of 5 minutes with you, right? The expectation is that they have to look at this record that they have no time to look at and even figure out. And so there's still too much happening with medications that don't work well together.
Right.
I wouldn't say that we would have to give up electronic health records. And certainly in the wedge, we have people with electronic health records. It's just that they're not connected to the outside. Or there's actual patient consent for what gets shared and what does not get shared. And everybody should, kind of make up their own mind about how much they're willing to share. But unless you actually know that they're sharing it and you have a choice, right now you don't have a choice. I think we have to bring back real consent. We have to bring back, like there should be no outside connections to the exchanges unless the patient says so. And in Minnesota, there's a little check mark because of our organization where you can refuse the health information exchange. So there are those kind of things where it could still be electronic for the physician, but it doesn't give everybody access for everything.
And is this something that would be a complete overhaul of HIPAA, a rejection and then a passing of a new bill or legislation? Is this something that can be amended to HIPAA?
So
is this
so
overturn
first off,
and repush?
Yeah, let's just start with the fact that HIPAA is wrong. So HIPAA is bad. Because this is the federal government where it doesn't belong. It's outside of its purview, and it has trampled on states' rights. The only thing, it hasn't trampled on states' rights, but it's confused everybody into thinking that states don't have any rights and that it actually protects privacy. So legislators are thinking, I don't have to write a state law because already the federal government is protecting patients. So it does give states the right to protect patients, but all the legislators think they're already protected already. So we really need to have real state laws, and that's the only way to really protect them, other than people protecting themselves.
Okay, so state by state
Yep,
legislating
state by state.
privacy.
Or just get rid of HIPAA.
Gotcha.
I'd be all for getting rid of HIPAA.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
letting states legislate state
Yes.
by state. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. All right, next.
Yeah, no, I don't care.
Yep.
But continue
There we
to
go, yep.
be, they didn't have the mic
Yep,
on.
get
Will
close,
it
yeah.
continue to be exempt or less obtrusive? And how long do you think that would stay in effect, that they would keep a passport as an alternative to real ID?
Oh, okay, so that's a slightly different question. So the passport has a specific purpose, in and out and air. Okay.
If you go to Europe, though, you suddenly become part of a much greater
Yes.
system, and all this data is collected and keyed back to your passport for all future visits.
This is the
according-
question. Is that actually, but it's still travel. It's travel. It's not like banking and
Okay.
renting a car and renting a hotel room
Right.
and going to college. Because in the countries, and if you're really interested in this topic, subscribe to Biometric Update. Biometric Update shows how in the countries that have national IDs, which is what this is, they can't do anything without their national ID. And we should not have national IDs. We should have state IDs, no federal IDs, no nationalization of identification. The passport is limited to travel. And yeah, when you go to another country, of course, that's how you have to travel in that country.
Do you expect it to be maintained as an alternative to real
Well,
ID
see, I
also?
kind of think it can't be anything but. Because, of course, you can fly overseas outside the country. It would be a very strange thing for them to say, you can't travel in the country with your passport. But they could do anything that they want. And then we just have to sue them and all sorts of other things as the people.
And also follow up on that, because I'd say if all your travel, if you go to somewhere like Europe, it's tied to your passport because you're an immigrant in that country.
exactly
Just like
right.
you'd expect anyone coming into the country is super tracked and followed coming into here that you would expect.
Yeah.
Logically, that would make sense, even though that doesn't happen. When you
Because
go
you're
into
not a
Europe or
citizen.
something like, exactly, you're not a citizen, so
citizen.
then you'd be followed and tracked
Yeah.
as an immigrant. But yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I actually heard the Dark Horse podcast, and
you
I reversed. I got my driver's license, and then they did take my federal ID, the real ID. Did take it here locally here.
You did the switch.
I did the switch. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So my question is because you know how this the real ID was not a standalone bill by itself.
Right.
And so my worry is that because right now there's a push for voter ID. So what is going to prevent the Congress from, gut or amend, right, the bill and actually just include, make real IDs the ID to vote. So this is the big concern that I have, and I just don't trust politicians anyway.
So I think actually it's the states that would rise up against the federal government doing that because voting is the purview of the state. And so if the federal government tried to do that sort of thing, I think the AGs in the states would come up against that. But there's one other thing that you said about, but anyway, in direct answer to your question, I don't believe that would happen because the state attorneys general would rise up against it.
Well, I'm still worried about California because right now I think there may be a push at the federal level to to have ID to vote in the federal elections. So this is the reason why I ask: what if now the Congress decided, hey, let's just use the real ID right now to vote in federal elections.
Okay, well, several things I'm just going to say because it's not come back to me. Congress. So Senator Rand Paul, on the 11th of September, 9/11, introduced his bill to repeal Real ID. Senator Paul is the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. So he's over TSA, he's over Homeland Security, which is pushing the Real ID. He's put out a press release, he's put out a tweet. So I think he might be going in that direction. It would be very hard for Congress to get by him and his committee with that kind of opposition. Plus, you might be concerned about California, but I think it would be way more AGs that would come out against that, no matter what. I mean, California could pass a law that says you need a real ID to vote in an election. They could do that, right? And that is one of the concerns because they're looking at it like a state ID. And it's the federal ID having control over what happens in California. I can't answer your what if because I think it would all come down to legal and litigation and all sorts of fights, about whether or not that would be successful.
So you meant Rand Paul is against real ID as if?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
He and his father have often and long been against national IDs.
All right, quick live stream question, and then we'll get back to you. What if we used...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
All right, perfect. An honest thief. Those are the kinds we like. Thank you. No, quick question. Can we use antitrust to break up some of these giant medical conglomerates? Would that be a viable way to break them up?
The interesting thing that's happening right now is I don't know if any of you saw Trump's social post about let's just get past these big bad insurance companies and give the money directly to the people. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that because that's the federal government giving it to the people, but I understand where he is going. And I do believe there needs to be a parallel system built where we actually have an entire cash-based basis for clinics, doctors, hospitals, and my solution for this, we call it the 3C solution: cash, catastrophic coverage, and charity. I don't know whether antitrust could be used, and there's different people who think differently about antitrust or not, but I think that eventually something is going to happen because the prices that people are paying now for coverage are out of this world. And of course, they aren't even coverage. They aren't real insurance. This is the corporate version of socialized medicine. And so these are big conglomerates put in place by the government who are rationing care and taking in tons of money. So whether it'll happen or not, I don't know, but absolutely something has to change.
All right. All right, next question.
These cards that you have out there on the...
Yeah, the organ donation. Yeah.
Why do we need to have one of these if we already told the DMV that we didn't want, that we, if we signed a thing already saying we didn't want it, that we didn't want to have them use our organs?
So I don't know what your DMV is like here, if you have the choice between yes, I'm willing and no, I'm not, or you only have the choice to say yes. And then it's presumed that you say no when you don't check the yes. I don't know what your DMV does, but here's what I will say, is the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act has a provision, it's been passed by all 50 states, it has a provision that if they can't get hold of someone and you look like you're dying, or they think you're dead or almost or whatever, right? They can't get hold of someone, there is a list. This is the first person to get hold of. This is the next, so it's like spouse, parent, whatever, right? All the way down to coroner. And so they didn't just run through that. And if they can't find anybody, under the Anatomical Gift Act, they can take your organs.
Oh, even though you signed a thing when you got your ID card,
even though your
saying
ID
that
card,
you didn't want them.
So, like I said, I don't know what your process is here. In
Oh,
Minnesota,
okay.
you have the check of yes, I do. That's the only one you have to check, not no, I don't.
Okay.
There's only one check. Yeah. And anyway, if they can't find any kind of paper, so this is an important paper, you can take more than one. If they can't find any kind of paper, then they can start, even though you have signed that. So you have to let somebody know, and then you have your own in your wallet.
That's interesting. Okay, next.
Thank you for being here tonight. Quick question is like...
Can you move up a little closer to the mic?
I
There we go.
can. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'd like to talk about some biometric data, like compromise. So once the Real ID, I don't have a Real ID, fortunately, because DMV kept trying to get me to do some documentation that I just kept trying to give them, and they were like, that's not enough. So I'm like, whatever. And I've used my passport offline, and that's fine. But for those who already have given their Real ID, all those documents have been scanned, and now they're in a file. So all that information is out there, and so what? Facial recognition, falsification, right? Especially with AI now, and all that. Can you talk about that for people to understand a little bit more? Maybe that will heighten the security of like checking. I don't know. I don't really know how it all works, but I know that that's something that had been brought to my attention. And for some people that are close to me have already have a Real ID, and if they do a refusal and they change it back, all that information is still in the system. Right. And if, like, is there a protection, or is that in your scope?
Yeah, so that is a question that people often have, is what do I do with all the information I gave? And as Cooper was saying, we discussed the fact that you have all these primary identification documents in one place. They're in one place. I mean, before you may have had the birth certificate in the courthouse, and you may have had what other certificates elsewhere, right? But now they're all in one place, they're all in one system. And so unless your law changes and tells them to get rid of them, there are some states where it says after 7 years they have to get rid of them. There are some of those states. So I don't have any idea what California has. But otherwise, they're going to keep them. And I realize the concern about that, and it's a process to try to thwart Real ID, and then perhaps as we thwart it, we'll be able to get to those documents. We are working with legislators in 10 or 12 different states, and creating bills that will either fully repeal Real ID, including all the documentation pieces, or simply doing things like requiring that they give you a consent over whether it's a biometric photo or not, or that they always give you the choice of a non-real ID, or that they destroy the data. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can attack it, and we're working with state legislators for what they think is going to work best in their state. So the thing you have to remember is that even though you gave all that ID, it's all sitting there. It's a little chunk. It's just a little chunk, right? But their whole idea is to start gathering where you are, what you're doing, and having control over all the data that will come in once it's all digitized.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if California was one of the ones that did destroy the data after a certain amount of time. Because believe it or not, California does actually have some decently strong digital privacy laws because of California being Silicon Valley, tech central. So we actually do have a lot of protections here as far as digital privacy goes that a lot of other states don't. And so just FYI, there are things that we can leverage here that other states can't as far as takedown requests, digital privacy things. It actually makes it easier for a California resident versus others. So just FYI on that front, it wouldn't surprise me. And especially California talking about right to be forgotten. That's not something that's talked about very commonly in other states, but is pretty commonly talked about in California as a right to be forgotten. So that's huge. If you ever look into that right to be forgotten, that is a big part of digital privacy. So.
You are right about that. The one thing that is in that, they had a wonderful bill that passed, right, on privacy.
Oh, I don't remember, but.
Yeah, yes. California has a wonderful bill.
Probably.
But it exempts HIPAA.
Oh, of course.
It says, for medical data, follow HIPAA.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I heard that the budget won't be passed because they put some things in the Democrats put some things in the bill that for paying for immigrants to stay here. They want us to pay for everything.
Yes.
And Trump won't sign it because of that thing, and that's what's holding everything back. Is that true?
So just before I came out here, I was looking at the news, and apparently there's some agreement.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that agreement is.
I think
but I do know one part about it, which is that the Republicans have told the Democrats that they will have a bill about extending the subsidies. And I could say more about the subsidies, but apparently the Democrats will be able to pick which version of the bill, and I don't know if the illegals will be in that version or not.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing I would just say about the subsidies is that I believe from the Democrats' point of view, they want single payer. They want socialized medicine. And when they expanded the subsidies during COVID, they expanded them to the middle class. And so the more people and chunks of people that they can put in government-run healthcare, the closer that they can get to their fully socialized government-run healthcare system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, and then we'll close with you. GDPR. Do you have any thoughts on GDPR in Europe? Is that something that is helpful, not helpful, something that we should reproduce here, something you should not reproduce here? Does it have the same problems as HIPAA? Your thoughts? I mean, it doesn't cover healthcare specifically, but I mean, as far as digital privacy?
Yeah, it covers Europe. It's made it interesting whenever we go online, right, and it tells us that we have the choice to not accept the cookies and all that kind of stuff, right? But it doesn't cover healthcare at all. Anything that protects privacy in any way protects freedom. So freedom is the foundation, privacy is the foundation of freedom. So anything like that is great. But again, that doesn't help healthcare at all.
The huge thing about GDPR, just FYI, is that any data of your data that is stored on servers has to be stored within the EU. So just FYI on GDPR. Okay, we'll have two last questions then.
Twila, we're so happy that you came. Thank you so much. You've given us a lot to think about. So just so I understand correctly, for those of us who have made the mistake and have a real ID, we don't first go to the DMV. We first send our passport and request a passport card. Once we have the passport card, then we go to the DMV and we tell them we want a regular ID and we don't want that one, right?
That is the way if you're going to fly and you don't want to have to worry and you don't want to have to think, do I have a rogue DMV agent at the airport who's going to give me a really hard time? That is the way to do it. Get your passport card first. It's cheaper to get your passport card at the same time as your passport, so I would encourage that.
But if you have a passport, you have to do without it for a while, excuse me, while you request the card, right? So I would be without my passport. That's why I didn't do it earlier, but I just wanted to know, I want to do it as quickly as possible, but I don't go to the DMV first. I take care of the passport thing first.
So I think you wouldn't have to get rid of your passport, because I just got a passport card having lost my passport card, and I went to the passport center with a copy of my birth certificate. And it has to be an official copy, not a copy of your actual, but an actual. And then they took that instead of my passport. So I didn't have to give up my passport.
Oh, so you could have been traveling with your passport during the time you were waiting for your passport card.
Yep.
Wow, that's great. And another thought, wouldn't you agree that all of these freedoms that we're losing one by one, even though we're prolonging them possibly by turning in our real IDs, or we're resisting some of these control issues, wouldn't you agree that they're all heading us right toward the one world government?
Well, I would say that there are certainly those who definitely want it to be a one world government. They want it to be a global identification system. They want it to be a global social credit system, a global carbon credit system, and they certainly want all of this to happen. I would say that there are the movers and shakers of the globalists who do, but there's a lot of people who maybe aren't thinking that way. They want something else. So I don't know for sure. I'm not going to make any claims to know for sure.
We hope we can extend it and prolong it as long as possible.
Absolutely.
But it is inevitable, since the scriptures do tell us, right?
Well, the scriptures talk about 666.
And the one world government.
And the one world government. That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay,
But
thank you
the
so much.
inability to buy and sell. And so, that's what the real ID could become.
Right, that's what I see. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, this will be our last question.
Hi, thanks for coming today. I have a background in AI and machine learning, so my question will be about that. So I know AI is a little scary to people, but large language models are possible to be downloaded locally, so that your queries will not go up to the cloud and will not be shared. So how do you think we can balance AI and like the privacy aspect of it, also with it might be the only healthcare that some people have, and there can be like a drastic reduction in costs of people going to health centers and people acquiring medical care with this new tool?
Well, I guess it's how much trust do you have in AI, right? AI, as I understand it, needs a lot of feeding of data regularly, or it will hallucinate. And I remember that one of the physicians who is the editor of, I think it was MedPage Today, he wrote an article called ChatGPT Just Lied to Me. So whatever the question was that he asked was going really well. He said he was reading along, he's like, yep, that's right. Because he's a physician, right? That's right, that's right, that's right. Well, wait a minute. What is all of this? Nope. And so, at some point it gave up and it started making up things, just making up things. Now, he as a doctor knew. He knew what was right and what was wrong. But, you've heard now that, it's all about who programs it, right? And so it's always possible that they could advise something I listened to 4 AI experts, and they talked about how there's no moral code or core to AI. There's no ethical, so they're just pulling these things together. And one of their concerns would be, if someone was just told to kill himself, or the guy who was told to, I don't know if it was take bleach or chlorine or something or other. Anyway, he died because that's what he heard from when he put in AI, right? So, I'm a nurse who thinks that healthcare we're not widgets. We're very different, even if we would have the same diagnosis, and the same treatment isn't going to work for all of us. It's very important to have a person, particularly if you're complicated, who can actually talk through it and figure it out with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Already.
Can I say one last thing?
Yes.
So I just want to say that I know that I bring information that most of you have not heard. And it could be kind of scary to y'all. But I bring it to engage you in this because it's really up to all of you to bring us freedom in this country, to protect freedom in this country. And I have a lot of hope because I know that the people move once they know something. And because I'm working in it, I just feel hope that on all of these issues that we are going to win. But it's a matter of getting you informed, and sometimes when you're really not informed about something, it's a little overwhelming. Just don't be overwhelmed and just know that we can totally win. I believe God has us on this issue because it's His intent to win. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Twila. Thank you. And you know, the thing that I want to close with is whenever we're talking about digital privacy, medical privacy, all these sorts of things, it does take the radical anti-modernity crowd in order to steer us sometimes into some of the more neutral or correct direction. So even if some may embrace modernity more than others or those sorts of things, sometimes it's those people that are speaking out loudest against government overreach, against the radical reduction of our digital privacy and those sorts of things that can sometimes steer us into a more correct way of moving forward into a modern age. And so I just wanted to mention that as we do try to navigate forward, how do we integrate LLMs into the medical field? How can we increase our privacy as we leverage those tools? How can we have some of those tools offline and local, maybe health records, digital, local, in each office, local LLMs to each practice, those sorts of things. How can we navigate that in moving forward? So I just wanted to close with that and thank Twila for being here. It was super informative, and I learned a lot of things I had no idea about as well. And so be sure to talk to Twila after. I don't know if she has any more books, but she can tell you how you can get a hold of her book and learn about all her resources. Yes, Amazon, but we don't necessarily want to give Amazon all the cut. We want her to be able to get the cut of her book. So you can talk to her and see if we can work something out to have her ship it out to you outside of Amazon. Outside of big tech, outside of the companies that are destroying our digital privacy. So that's why I wanted to sort of see if we can have her send those directly. Anyway, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Next week, same place, same time, is going to be Inez Cantor Freedom. So be sure to go to StandingFree.org and register for that, because that's going to be one you won't want to miss. Our biggest speaker ever. Yes, and be praying for him as well. We got him a Bible, and we're praying that he will come to know the Lord as well.